So for the small portion of you that think that crunch isn't real and that it doesn't affect game developers, think again. I also have proof right here that you're factually wrong. Let's get into it. Skip it up and that up. Hey everybody, your favorite man with an ass is now on Cameo. You could get your own personalized video message sent directly from me to you. Link to my Cameo below in the description. I look forward to seeing you there. So I have said throughout the years, and I still hold to this, that I think the most important thing with game development is to make sure that the developers are physically and emotionally healthy. I don't care if a game takes another 2 years to release. If it means that game developers don't have to crunch, don't have to work like 15 hours a day, don't have to literally work themselves sick, miss out on being with their families, I'm fine with it. Like, do you really need a game 6 months earlier and have people get sick because of it? I don't think so. Most people I know that are gamers don't think so either, but I think there's a lot of pressure, and I see it from the community too. There's always those unreasonable village idiots that want their games right away, and game developers are lazy. But what I mostly think it is that there's the upper brass that want to hit certain quotas during certain quarters, and they want those games out there. Come hell or high water, who cares if the game is unfinished? Who cares if it's buggy? Who cares if the poor developer who's not choosing to have the game come out unfinished deals with the wrath and no one ever goes after the executives who made the choice? Let's just get the game out there. Let's just have these people work themselves sick and, you know, we'll patch it later. I love that. That's a great mentality to have. Well, for those of you who still think that crunch doesn't actually have an effect on game developers, here is Bruce Leroy, who is the principal character artist over at Respawn. He used to work at Rocksteady Games, and he landed in the hospital because of crunch. And this is what he had to say on Twitter. Gamers, quote, game devs are lazy nowadays. Nobody ends up in a hospital from overtime, which I've proven before that's not the case. LOL, here's me in the hospital after collapsing from game dev burnout before the doctor explained my blood is flooded with lactate from prolonged stress. She then asked if I'm in the military. This was many years ago, guys. I'm all good now. I was just pulling it out the archives to share advice. Also, physical burnout can come from enduring excessive micromanagement, harassment, bullying, and toxic work environments too. Recognize it. Okay, thanks for sharing your stories and the replies. I gotta mute this now, but shout out to all those ones who inspired this thread. We developers are definitely all lazy and should be working harder. Now here he's showing people saying in his feed that he's just being lazy. Oh, boo-hoo. This is, of course, the Twitter user's name is Groomer Detector. Of course they are. Of course, they must be a fan of someone that I won't mention here. Oh, boo-hoo, you have to work 60 hours a week for once in your pathetic, easygoing life, and now you're sad because you are a spineless, weak-willed human being trying working in construction or roofing for a blank day and see what a $16 hour wage gets you. You don't... Oh my God, people are in their own bubbles. Let's continue though. Nothing worth making has ever been easy. There hasn't been a single decent video game, film, or building created that wasn't made with the blood, sweat, and tears of hard work and suffering, because anything less is not worth making. Oh wow, he's trying to be motivational there. We should put some music behind that. That was so... Man, that was so inspiring. Groomer Detector. Man, if you could tell with people, like, working in an office, just because you're sitting in a cubicle and you're comfortable in front of a computer, those are soul-crushing jobs. I've worked physical jobs and I've worked behind a desk, okay? And I would actually say sometimes the stress of working behind a desk is far worse in some ways because it eats at you and eats at you. Whereas when you're doing something physical, you know, like working at a restaurant, which I've done before, I actually found that job kind of and sometimes stress relieving because you're not sitting there and thinking, and you're doing a physical job, whereas in a cubicle, you're just constantly stressed. You may have people down your throat. You may have deadlines to meet. You need to get this paperwork done no matter what, even if you have to clock out and come back in. Yes, that's happened to me. So don't tell me that sitting in a cubicle is easier. I love these people that think they know everything and they know absolutely nothing because they're idiots, and you can't tell an idiot that they're an idiot. Because they think they're smart. They're too stupid to realize that they're not smart. And if you think that game crunch is the exception, not the rule, I got some bad news for you. This comes from the Washington Post, and how much crunch goes on in the gaming industry is frightening. According to a 2019 survey from the International Game Developers Association, 40% of game developers reported working crunch time at least once over the course of the previous year. For the majority of these developers, crunch wasn't just a few extra hours or a long weekend, but at least 20 extra hours on top of their standard 40-hour work week. Just 8% said they received extra pay for those hours. So not only are they working themselves to the bone and making themselves sick, the companies that they're working for, the publishers and developers they're working for, is like, oh, you put in a ton of extra work, you get to keep your job. You don't get, there's no other incentive to it. You don't do it. We'll find some other guy fresh out of college who's 21 who will do the same work you do for next to nothing. Doesn't that suck? You're a slave. That's exactly what they're saying. Look, I know most of at least my audience understands that game developers are human beings. These games aren't made by some machine that just are magically pumped out. But for those of you that don't, and you're just like, I have to work construction, I have to do this. Every job is hard in a different way. Your job is hard in a different way from a game developer's job. A lawyer's job is harder in a different way from the game developer's job. You as a construction worker, your job is different, hard in a different way from other people's jobs. Get out of your bubble and realize that other people could be suffering in different ways. I know it's hard for some people to do. They think the whole world revolves around them. But here's me to pop your bubble and make you realize that life, it exists outside of you, and people have different struggles. The bottom line is that there has to be something that happens, whether there's legislation put in place, unions that are made, which, boy, do I know that these companies hate unions. They don't want that to happen, where these employees are protected, because literally giving up your life to make a video game isn't worth it. Staying away from your family to make a video game, working 20 extra hours a week and barely being able to sleep isn't worth it. Your physical health isn't worth it. Your mental health, losing that isn't worth it. And these companies are soulless corporations. They just want to make a profit and don't care. And then the best part is, if the games come out unfinished because the publishers want to rush them out, who gets the finger pointed at them? The developers, who are the ones who just wanted to put out a good product but were forced to rush it out because quarters. Got to meet those numbers. It's disgusting. People shouldn't be getting sick to make video games that entertain us. This is Rich at Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.